joining us, all of you supporting the Atlas Society, those of you on Zoom, those of you joining us on YouTube. You know what to do. We have a really unique opportunity, so please ask your questions, keep them short. We'll try to get to as many of them as possible. Now, I'd like to introduce a man who needs very little introduction. Jay Lepare is president and CEO of the Louisiana-based Lapeyre LLC, a diversified global manufacturer of industrial equipment, including food processing. Objectivist business ethics helped him overcome the challenges of Hurricane Katrina, the severe recession of 2008, Gulf oil spills, and those same principles continue to help him navigate the various business challenges of 2020. Jay is the past chair of the Tulane Board of Administrators, the Louisiana Association of Business and Industry, the Business Council of New Orleans, and the Isidore Newman Board of Governors. Jay, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Fantastic to be here. I'm pumped.
So usually it's like a meal and I save this little morsel to the end. But with you, I am going to be able to start right up at the top with your origin story. We're seeing a bit of some symbols of it on the wall behind you, some of the posters that you have. But Jay, tell us how did you discover Ayn Rand? What's your origin story?
Well, that's just pure serendipity. Really one of the luckiest events of my life. I had a roommate. I was on the basketball team at UT Austin. I wasn't getting to play because they were trying to win the games, but I was still part of that team. And we had a junior college a transfer come in, and we roomed together my junior year. And we were talking early that fall, and I said, communism is good in theory, but it doesn't work in practice. And he said, communism is the most immoral political system ever conceived. And I was, whoa, I mean, what is that about? I don't know how many hours later, he was incredibly frustrated, quite at the point of saying, look, you're so stubborn, and I'm sure he used a few expletives, and so ignorant that I just can't ever speak to you again. I'm not going to, piss away another night, this many hours until you've read some books. So he gave me some Bastiat, some law, the law. He gave me Hazlitt, Economics in One Lesson. He gave me on Mises, I think it was praxeology, but I'm not sure what it was. But he gave me Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, man's rights, the roots of war, what is capitalism, the nature of government. I read those, and I just was the clarity and the compelling nature of that. I was done. I mean, as soon as that happened, I get it. Now, I didn't agree with Rand on a lot of things as best I understood them for many, many years, but at that point I was on a journey, and that was it. Pretty amazing.
Well, speaking of that journey, in addition to our appreciation for the philosophy and literature of Ayn Rand, Jay and I also share some Louisiana roots. My mother's family, the Duros and Bienvenus, come from St. Martinville, and I spent many summers there going to church with my grandmother, who went every single day. So how did, coming from such a religious state, did the philosophical and practical changes happen in your life, and what was that process for you?
Well, I think the implications were immediate in the sense that it started me on a journey, and that journey was a consistent effort to introspect. And the most significant part of it, I think, was Rand's view of heroic life and making the best of one's life, and the fact that the world was win-win. I think somewhere all of the other philosophy, and I'm sure it's not original to Rand, or at least I assume it's not, but because clearly economists had written about the invisible hand and things of that nature, but the fully win-win nature was something that I never recognized or appreciated. And then the exalted view she had of America and the founding and those sorts of things. So that was a journey that I just was excited about, because I just started reading everything I could about that. And I just parked religion, and I honestly have never thought of that in anywhere near the same level of importance, as and then years later I came to agree with her on it. But at the time, I just didn't think it was that important, and didn't worry about it. And to this day, I think there are aspects of, when I look at the people I respect and admire, that doesn't seem to be a central issue, in how I deal with people. So especially when I look inside our company and philosophy and those sorts of things. So it was not a problem that inhibited me. I was too excited about the other parts of it.
So when and how did you discover the Atlas Society? When did it become something that you wanted to spend a lot of time on? I just want everybody who's joined us on Zoom and on YouTube to know Jay is supportive in many ways, but he's been very hands-on, and that has been one of the biggest perks of my job at the Atlas Society, is to learn from him in our weekly calls, in which we go, into the metrics and the numbers and the decisions that we have to make, and kind of get his perspective as an entrepreneur on them. But I know how I came to the Atlas Society, but how long have you been involved, and what was your introduction?
I don't remember the dates. It's what is it? Since the memory of man runneth not to the contrary, or whatever that quote is. I mean, it's been a long time. But I was huge fan of Leonard Peikoff's. I was a huge fan of a lot of the work that was part of the organized ARI. And to this day, just benefited tremendously from all that learning. And I was reading. I read Fact and Value, and Leonard's assessment that Rand defined objectivism with her philosophical writings, and very much like the Catholic Church, that was the standard of what objectivism was. And I thought, damn right, that's exactly right. You have to have standards, and you can't let this thing get watered down. And I was telling someone about that, and they said, well, have you read David Kelly, Truth and Toleration? And I said, no, I haven't. They said, well, you really should if you really want to understand this. And I can't remember the timing of any of that, but at some point I got a copy of it, and I read it, and I went, oh, that's not that's not where my head was. And so I reread Fact and Value, and I reread Truth and Toleration. And then I somehow connected and went to Atlas Society events. I think it was called the Objectivist Center at the time. I'm just not sure what the names were. And began to appreciate the depth of David's position of being committed to truth as opposed to loyalty to people or anything else. And that we could either be pursuing truth, or we could be objectivism could either be about pursuing truth, or it could be about the philosophical writings of Ayn Rand and interpreting those, but it couldn't be about both without saying that Rand was infallible. So you then say, so what is an objectivist? And you can be an objectivist if you say, well, I'm just an admirer of Rand's writings, but you can't be an objectivist in the sense of saying, well, objectivism is true. And I think David framed that well, and that's what got me. And then, of course, becoming involved with the Atlas Society, I think that David's benevolence and his elevating that as a major virtue, and I think that the spirit of not being judgmental without adequate facts is really an area that distinguishes David's view of objectivism from how some interpret Rand, and possibly how Rand herself, because I think Rand was just so smart that she imagined that others could see the same thing. So she imagined intent where it didn't exist. And and David has always been a great injustice is to misjudge. Better to wait until you have all the facts. So those are the reasons. And then you look at the people. So I just got more and more excited about the people, the association, the team we have, people on that board. John Igliolora, I mean, what a fantastic human being. I remember complaining to John one day about how I really hated tipping. It made me nuts that I'm never prepared. I don't have it. And John said, I love tipping. Tipping's fantastic. He says, what I like to do is over tip. And I think in terms of flourishing and being exuberant about life, I mean, he's just, and Frank Brooks, who I think one of our teams still uses the idea that reality bats last. Frank is just such a clear, unemotional, logical, decent, person. And Baron Bond, these are the longtime guys. Baron, who pushed that we're all about ethics and personal ethics, and we're not, as objectivists, going to do anything for politics. We have to be about the culture and impacting individual ethics, and from that foundation, then you have a real shot of a culture that respects reason and achievement and benevolent self-interest and all the things that we value. So. And a team. I mean, I love this team. I think you've been amazing, and what you've done is fantastic. And I think we're doing great work. We're reaching people who I don't think ever would have had the opportunity to be exposed. And I'm just so grateful that somehow I got exposed. That I think sort of emotionally, any single person we reach is exciting for me. It's just. Any new mind is a great thing. So that's what I've benefited from, and I've gotten more out of it. I learn from everybody all the time. We got a new member, Peter Kopsis. I mean, my God, he just knocked it out of the park, and his set a standard that makes me scared to come on here.
No, it's amazing. It's open objectivism, but we've got a very close-knit group, both on our board of trustees and the Atlas Society staff, which is growing. So all of you that are out there and interested in making a change and doing something new and being a part of a team that is on the rise, then please reach out to us. We would love to talk to you and work with you, and appreciate your support. And please ask your questions of Jay Lepare. We are going to try to get to as many of them as possible. But first, Jay, I wanted to go back to a really fascinating interview that you did with our senior scholar, Stephen Hicks, back in 2012. You referenced how objectivism has influenced your business philosophy, and that it has been key to your company's growth and its success globally, and in dealing with some of those many challenges that I outlined at the top. Could you elaborate a little bit on how objectivism has influenced your business approach?
Sure. I think on the list of sort of my gratitude list, this has to be foundational, because it gave me the intellectual tools to approach business in a very clear-eyed way. First of all, define what business is, and that is the business organizes resources in order to produce products and services for trade at a profit. So we're engaged in attracting talent and capital, and then organizing it in order to produce value. And everyone who participates in that is engaged in a win-win process. And if you understand that it is about individuals, and the rate of change is accelerating in a dramatic way. Maybe 50 years ago, you could run a business where you say, here's the top down, nothing changes. You got one genius at the top and they figure it out. But in our business, it's about attracting the talent and having those people work in an environment with people they respect and admire, and then having everyone share principles that they're committed to. So we put a bounty on the cultural terrorists and get rid of them, and we hope they go work for our competitors, even if they're talented. And we try to get everyone to have skin in the game and to be aligned. And we expect what we call as errors of intent. We don't want to spend a dime on policing. Mm-hmm. We want anyone who commits an error of intent. That's it. You should be. It doesn't mean that it's termination in every case, but everyone knows there's no exceptions for that. So that foundation of you're here to serve your own interests, and it's about appealing to the greatness in every individual, and that every individual, regardless of the type of work, is capable of doing excellent work. And that's what guides us every day. And I think we feel that when you deal in a rate of change like we're dealing in, or you deal in emergencies where God knows I'm the last one to know the facts about what to do on any given granular situation. It's vital that people take responsibility, think like owners, and organize themselves to get their work done. I'd also say that it's directly opposite what we were told when we went global. When we went global, everyone said, well, you're going to Europe, you're going to have to figure out how to celebrate each of the different diverse cultures. You're going to have to figure out how do you sort of recognize that people are different. And we said, BS, no, we're going to frame our values, and we're going to attract the people who share these values, and we're going to build a great organization tied to that. People who admire greatness in others, who learn from each other, who are introspective, who are on a journey of self-improvement, who treat each other with respect. All these basic, simple things. So I don't think I could have gotten any of that but for the clarity that Rand brought, that it's all about the individual, because we had an awful lot of consultants who told us different. And then, of course, when we've gone to Asia, we've had the same effect, that we've attracted people who love what we stand for.
So shifting gears into the most recent crises or series of interrelated crises over the past year, what about the impact of COVID, of lockdowns, unrest on your various businesses here in the United States and around the world?
Yeah, it's been tremendously challenging. We had a number of cases. Well, first of all, when COVID occurred, we're in the food manufacturing support business, so groceries are going crazy wanting to stock up, and our employees are scared to come in. So we have a tremendous challenge, and it was because of the trust that we had in each other, the fact of our transparency, our commitment to being open about everything, that people said, okay, I get it. And we also, I should have mentioned this, we take 42% of what we make after a return on net assets, and we put it into incentive pools, in addition to having lots of other commissions and gain sharing and other programs, because we're trying to align interests as best we can. And I think we had some real leadership who said, no, we'll come in. Now, we did have over 100 cases since, and the vast majority of those in Louisiana. As you know, New Orleans was a hot spot early in the game. But we worked through it. And the biggest problems we had were tied to regulations across the country and across countries, where the question was, could you actually send people to install significant equipment and do these things? And that was a regulatory nightmare. we were deemed an essential business, which I always thought was a flawed approach to the issues to begin with. It should have been about how do you keep, safety, and how do you have people meet whatever the regulations were. So that planning was a nightmare. But over time, we got sort of acclimated to how to work through it. So it has actually worked out where I'm confident we'll come out of the back end of this far better, because we've used remote technology in a way that's much more efficient than we ever imagined. For even commissioning complex equipment, we put a piece of equipment in I think it was Vietnam, where we did not have a single person travel, and it was a first install of a piece of equipment that's a couple hundred feet. So it's a big ass system, to put it mildly.
Well, speaking of these food processing systems, and I come from the food industry at Dole Food Company, and one of the areas that it did really well was with their innovations that they had in their salad processing plants. But when we go back to the origins of COVID, there was at least some concern. We may not know conclusively, but at least there was a public perception or a public narrative at one point that there was some issues with how food was being processed in China in terms of the sanitary conditions. Did that impact? Did that create more demand for your equipment?
Well, the whole wet market issue, I think, has been elevated, and I think that there is a concern, even though now the facts have come out, and apparently that was not the cause. It may still have been where it spread. I don't really know for sure, but wet markets have been on the target, have been targeted for a while as dangerous, and I think as China has to fix that, that probably could work out well for us. Now, what doesn't work out well for us is that we live on global trade, and I think that demonizing trade as win-lose is a major mistake. It's win-win, and the real game should be about the corruption, the stealing of IP, and all the things that shouldn't be going on, as opposed to trade deficits, which I just don't think makes sense. But all of that trade war language is a bad thing for our business.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead then to one of our other questions here, and we are still, we don't have clarity, and we do not have an elected new president. But you've been critical. You've been, I think, balanced. You've had some things that you appreciated about the current president, but other things that you criticized, particularly with regard to setting up trade, and conflating all of these issues, such as intellectual property issues, with a balance of trade. What are you thinking about primary differences for businesses such as yours with one administration or the other?
Yeah, regulation is the best thing now that Trump did. Now, he did not, in my view, do enough to institutionalize that through legislation, but his push to deregulate, I think, has had a greater impact on the economy than anything else that he did, including the tax cuts. But that's just my layman's view of it. And I think that what we're about to walk into is even more free spending, which is insane, and then a regulation run wild. President Obama viewed that he didn't need legislation. He can just regulate, and Trump did the same. So I think it's teed up for a really bad regulatory experience, and we're already seeing it with the discussions on COVID. The idea that we'll have a national standard, and this will be a great thing. I just think that's terrible, and it's very bad for potentially very bad for business, and certainly going to be overkill in the sense that one size will not fit all, and it's ridiculous to think it will.
So that plays into a question that we have from one of our viewers. Sue Baird says, how do we reach more of our political leaders that make policy to understand objectivism and not agenda driven? I have thoughts.
Well, I think the most important thing we can do is personal ethics, and I think that what we at the Atlas Society have done is make Rand less radioactive and more smile friendly, for lack of a better way to frame it, so that we could reach people and have the ideas actually be assessed for the value of the ideas as opposed to for an off the cuff dismissal. Because Rand was a serious. I mean, she is a world class philosopher and innovator, and yet she gets no visibility except a derogation from that. And I think what we did by saying it's not using selfishness, but explaining that benevolent and ethical self-interest is fundamental, it creates the avenue where you can actually start having these conversations. And you can see that business needs this very badly. The Business Roundtable embraced this idea of, well, maybe business shouldn't be about the interests of the investors and the owners, and we start to have this self censoring culture, and this idea that somehow a for-profit is wrong, when if you say no, it's really about win-win, and business is the only way that you can scale win-win values, and consistently scale win-win. There's nothing else. There's no other. You can't. A family might have it, but they can't scale, and nonprofits can only go so far with it. They don't have the same accountability to customers and markets, and clearly, so it's incredibly important that we not try to lead with politics, but try to lead with philosophy and ethics, and hit where we're strongest, which is business ethics and personal ethics. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, well, so among the personal ethics, Jay, one virtue that you have consistently emphasized in the past few years with me, and in terms of something that you would like to see philosophically more unpacked, and at the very least to start with talking about gratitude and looking at it from an objectivist lens. Of course, we did My Name is Gratitude as one of our Draw My Life videos. I know a little bit more about this, but if you would share with our viewers how this became so important to you, what it means to you, and why do you feel that it's important for us to promote in a philosophical context?
Well, first I concluded that gratitude was a major self-interested virtue, and I have been pushing that. The philosophers, some see it as yes, some no, but it takes a lot of discussion, and it's really hard to say what exactly is it, where it fits. But I approach this as a layman, and I look at what Rand used to talk about, the age of envy, and you look at resentment, and you look at victimhood today, which is, I mean, it's out of the closet into the streets and running wild with no one saying they have a problem with it. It's as if we're glorifying victimhood. And if you personally, if you say, let me run an exercise, and I think the positive psychology people and have run exercise where they say just spend a few minutes a day thinking about what you're grateful for. Now, one day think about the people in your family. The next day think about the people who influenced your history. The next day think about how lucky you are to be on a planet that has all the opportunities that exist here. Then think about the people who brought the rule of law and protection of individual liberty, and it gives you the freedom to make these choices. Now, how do you feel about about the world. You can't actually hold victimhood and resentment and envy in your mind at the same time. Now flip it and run this exercise, and then think about all the people who have ever done anything wrong to you, and really dwell on it. Just ruminate on that, and then think, about what their intentions were, and don't assume good intentions, and don't imagine that. No, and think about how just the worst possible in everyone. Then how do you feel? I mean, this is just, it is so obviously a major self-interested virtue that as a layman, I just get, and I think that if today people brought a sense of gratitude for the amazing prosperity that we enjoy, the amazing opportunities we have, I don't think we could see the level of resentment and victimhood that exists. And a big part of it is this comparison to others, which is hugely problematic. I loved your panel with the athletes, because here you have these world-class athletes who go at it with the idea that what did said about Laird, he'd rather die than lose. And then he said, yeah, but the real point is challenging and developing the best in me. Gratitude gives you the mindset to get on with that. It has you appreciate what you're good at, and recognize that you have weaknesses, and anyway. So there's a lot here, but I love this virtue.
This theme. All right, Atlas Society Gremlins. Maybe you can drop into the comment section the link to the My Name is Gratitude, Draw My Life, as well as the panel that Jay just referenced in terms of the Athlete as Atlas panel that we had at the Atlas Society Gala. And in terms of the philosophical firepower that we have at the Atlas Society to develop this theme of gratitude as a benevolently self-interested virtue, we have the philosopher in the house. Our senior scholar, Dr. Stephen Hicks, is here. He's got a sort of a different question here. I know that in the waterfall section of our site, as well as the Atlas Intellectuals meetings that he's been helping us host, he's been delving very deep into artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and some of these new emergent disruptive technologies. And his question is, how does one draw the line on technologies that could be used against us? Is there a general principle, or is it an individual technology by technology decision?
Well, at first, this is way above my pay grade, Stephen. So that's. But I would tend to say that the precautionary principle is not the right one. That we need to look at this as general bias to allow technologies unless we can see that there's going to be a substantial risk. And a lot of this is what I'll call Rand's minimalist view of metaphysics. I just don't know until you actually get into the facts here and analyze them. But again, if you don't know, Stephen, then the chances of me knowing are less than non-existent. So. Excuse me. Sorry about that.
Well, we're going to have we'll get Stephen back on one of these soon to talk a little bit more about that, particularly after the gala in which we had Peter Diamandis as our honoree. The only technology that I want to ban is leaf blowing. Okay.
Yeah.
But maybe that's not really the right kind of way that I should be thinking of it. I need to think about how Zoom is going to have an AI filter interface so that they mask and you can't even hear it.
Well, apparently Chip with Yal was wearing red shoes, and I told him that he should be careful that that's not banned, because it's something you could easily imagine those of us who have different aesthetics saying, "Hey, shouldn't be tolerated."
Yes, and that is Cliff Maloney, or was it Cliff Maloney? Yeah, yes, one of our great partners, Young Americans for Liberty, and his trademark red shoes. Of course, colors, primary colors have now become politicized as well. So that's why I'm kind of opting for lavender. So, okay, so we have another question from Vicky, who is talking about her 21-year-old son, who always wanted to be an entrepreneur and started a business with a storefront in February and was closed down in March before they even opened. Plus, they were completely looted by the first round of riots in Los Angeles. She's asking, what advice would you give to young people like him so that he doesn't get discouraged?
Yeah, obviously, dealing with adversity of that nature, you pour your heart and soul into something, and then you build it, and then you have it, destroyed because of lack of government doing its job, its fundamental job of protecting lives and property. That's a bitter pill, and it's. I think once you work your way through the emotions of this, the face reality as it is. Don't BS yourself, and then focus on what your options are, and primarily start with thinking, and then recognize that at that age that this is a long runway, and you should recognize that there's a lot you can do that can build your human capital, build your skills and abilities, and competence attracts opportunities. And if you build those skills and develop it, and you work on what I'll call a sense of moral ambitiousness for your character, that you will be in a position to have options. What is remarkable to me is how often people say, well, that person was really lucky because these opportunities came by. And you go, well, how many opportunities would an incompetent person need when they come by? So I think that being prepared, is just prepare yourself, recognizing the rate of change is accelerated. That the number one thing you can do is not have a particular skill, but have the ability to think and have self-control and be a person of integrity. Treat people with respect. All those sorts of things are a big deal. So.
Yeah, I think it is a huge matter of perspective. I like to always say, to be objective, you have to have perspective. And sometimes as objectivists, there isn't enough of that. And the issue of gratitude, I think, really, not from a kind of a Thanksgiving, Hallmark approach, but just sort of saying, okay, what is it? How do I weaponize my experience? Yeah. Everything that's happened to me, including the most horrible things that have happened to me, that you say, yeah, that was really unpleasant, and my house burned down, and I lost a bunch of money, but I gained these skill sets and a resilience and ability that, maybe it's not going to seem this way, but in not your first career, your second career, your third career, but like at some point, it's going to be, you have this incredible ability to do things others can't.
Fully agree, and that mindset is a huge part of the foundation, and reinforces why I believe it should be a major virtue, right?
All right, David Kelly, calling Stephen Hicks, calling Richard Salzman. Okay, Sue asks, I find it interesting that those that don't put in the effort to make a business are the ones that demonize the risk-taking owners. If they succeed in reducing the profits of companies, will that reduce the incentive of creating excellent companies? I think that's a very interesting question, because a lot of the greatest entrepreneurs and innovators that I know, they didn't go into what they did. I mean, your dad, who started out with these inventions of like shrimp killing equipment, and, he didn't do it for the profits necessarily.
I think that's true, but I don't think you can separate these two without having a dramatic injury, because the injustice issue becomes overwhelming, even for someone who's motivated by, I just love the technology. But more than that, very, very little of what you can do, maybe some things on the internet or some things, but in manufacturing today and industrial world, very little of what you do that's genuinely innovative can be done quickly and easily. It takes systems are extraordinarily complex. They're integrated. It's so even testing something can take a tremendous amount of capital, and that in itself is not going to be provided by the entrepreneur. And someone has to fund those years of
Mhm.
passion, and someone has to keep that going. And investors aren't going to do that. So the idea that you can separate these things is fatuous to me. It just isn't. It's it's actually bizarre, because if anyone put themselves in that position, uh, first they neither they neither love what they do in most cases, and their passion is only for destruction, not for creation. So I don't know how anyone can reach that conclusion that without the money incentives, this will all continue to be generated. Um,
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons there's debate within the liberty movement. People say, oh, don't say capitalism, it's a bad word. Say whatever, free market, whatever. They just keep chasing some less controversial uh, label. But the bottom line is the reason that we celebrate uh, money and we celebrate the currency of a free market as the currency of a free mind, and defend capitalism is not just because it is the only moral system which is consonant with man's existence as a rational being, but because it takes capital to invest in new businesses.
Yeah, and I'm fine with whatever terminology works best to get the ideas in the door. But I don't, at the end of the day, and it is sad that Marx is the one who came up with the term and all those things. But it is what it is today, and you have to go and defend it, because you have to start by clearly defining it. And one of the things that you want to make sure we avoid is what many people think of capitalism is the cronyism,
Of
and
course.
that is a major negative, because if cronyism is 5% of the economy, and my guess is that it's less than that in terms of its total GDP by a
Mhm.
lot, but it still is enough to debase and to injure the perception of capitalism, and to undermine all of what people know to be virtuous from a perception point of view. So you really have to think language that's clear, and free markets may help do that. But I would come back to say, you know, the nobility of business, the fact that business is win win win. Everyone wins from business, even the people who think they lost. We've had many situations where a competitor has done something that we thought was impossible, and it doesn't happen often, but it's a number of times, and we thought, oh, that was impossible. Oh no, they did it. Then we learned a lot, and we've made ourselves better from that. And the profits that the innovator makes get commoditized into consumer goods. So even the competitors who lose benefit from all of that generalized prosperity in a way that is so genuine and deep. It's just hard to understand how anyone doesn't celebrate this. And I think Stephen had some work on this. We should have statues to these people who to the great business innovators. We have statues to political leaders, and the first most enduring characteristic of business is trust. If
Mhm.
you don't trust everyone in the business, and if consumers don't trust it, then nothing is going to happen, because it's win-win. It's value for value. And the first casualty of politics is truth. I mean, it is equivalent of war. It's just gone. So why do you want one over the other? Anyway, that's my rant.
Okay, so that actually fits perfectly into this next question from Brian on YouTube, who asks, how important do you feel it is for a business to cultivate their own company culture? And are there currently any organizations who help spread objectivism through company culture? A
Well,
softball for you.
yeah, I think that objectivism is naturally part of what any highly competitive, high performance company culture ought to be based on. If it is a complex culture that's not tied to, one or two or a small number of geniuses, or have some, but if you want to build an enduring global organization, if you're talking real scale, you can't escape face reality, use reason, respect achievement, treat each other with respect, be honest, bring integrity. Focus on the fact that you're a work in progress, that you're trying to get better every day, bringing your best game, challenging yourself to be introspective, challenging yourself to make the highest possible contribution to the team, treating, I mean, the list just goes on and on, right? Now, David once said that and I loved it. Someone was talking about well, that's not really objectivism. That's a lot of other stuff. And David said, well, anything that is true is actually objectivism, because that's what the philosophy is. And you start with, don't ask me to come to your team and sacrifice myself. I'm coming to your team out of my personal interests. And that's why I'm here. And I think when you do that, you get alignment. You get win-win-win. You get a scale of win-win-win. Anyway, that's my cut.
All right. Well, we've got about 10 more minutes, folks. So you still have some time to get your questions in. Mark Shoup asks, thanks for explaining the cronyism is really a very small part of even this mixed economy. Of course, capitalism, the term, gets a bad rap. How do we take back the moral high ground by taking back the word morality?
I think the way that we have framed it, and you can pull, I don't have it handy, but the objectivist mission, the Atlas Society mission, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Inspire people to embrace reason, achievement, benevolence, and ethical self-interest as the moral foundation for political liberty, personal happiness, and a flourishing society. Mm-hmm. And I think that morality needs to be connected to benevolent self-interest and elevating gratitude, and having it be about personal happiness at the end of the day in a way that can't be demonized to a dog-eat-dog, win-lose world is the start. And I think if someone says, no, that's not morality, I don't know anyone who doesn't care about their interests. And whatever they are, they should be free to pursue those and to serve them. And I think that is what ethics and morality ought to be. If you flip it and say, who should be able to tell me how to run my life, I think you get to a different moral point. And that I think is foundational to regaining the high ground here.
Denny 3161 says, how do you prepare for threatened revolution in policy and regulation? Do you take these threats seriously and adopt a wait and see approach? I guess he's probably talking about potential change in regulatory attitudes at the federal level, or if they happen at the state level. Jay, how much time do you spend on that?
One of the beauties of what can happen in any particular industry, in food, I don't think, which is where we are in the fulfillment centers with the FedExes and those package handling and that sort of stuff. We don't expect to see huge regulation. But if you look at finance, I expect that the big guys are quite comfortable with regulation. They've organized themselves to be able to manage it, and as a result, it gives them a competitive advantage over the small niche players who might try to enter. The oil and gas industry, I think the biggest benefit that they will have is that reality will bat last. You can't take these unreliable fuels and scale them. You can't use renewables and scale. It's just not gonna work, and not destroy the environment, because the land space it takes, given the density, is huge. So I think at some point there will be that recognition. But I don't know that you can prepare for it. I think one of the fundamental problems is the difference between volition and win-win, which you can always prepare for win-win. You can always anticipate with more brains, with better technology, but force. How do you guard against people using cronyism to shut you down, or even populism? That's a hard one.
Yeah, well, talking about the unsustainability and even economic damage of some of these supposed environmentally safer technologies, one of the ways that Jay pumps lifeblood into the Atlas Society is not just his leadership, financial support, managerial advice, but the ideas that he gives us for the kinds of books that we should have in terms of our book club, as well as guests that we should have on the Atlas Society Asks. And next week is one of those guests that we wouldn't have had if it wasn't for Jay's suggestion, which is Michael Schellenberger, author of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
So that is, one of the ways that we can prepare, which is not necessarily to hire, a bunch of lobbyists for business or high-priced consultants to try to figure out and model all of these potential eventualities, but to inform ourselves and to inform young people about what the real dangers and what the real, opportunities also are.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to take one more question because every time Fossilized Dodo, I'm always going to ask one of your questions because I just love saying your name. It's so cute. So Fossilized Dodo wants to know, do you think the Washington revolving door contributes to corporate cronyism?
Well, yes. I mean, how can you? I would say the best question, the most concise question that someone who's a regulatory fan ought to ask is, who regulates the regulators? Because the lack of transparency, the special interests, the hijacking, it always gravitates to the people who are the insiders. It may start with a noble mission. You start with that, with the Baptist, but pretty soon the bootleggers come in there, and then you have the bootlegger Baptist phenomena, where they peddle whatever it is for the public, but behind the scene, it's all about follow the money. And I think that's a major problem. The other day in that totalitarian discussion that Stephen moderated with David and Richard,
Yeah.
I thought Richard's observations about democracy were really significant, because the founders were all about protecting liberty, and the Constitution was designed to protect liberty. But what you see now is, well, no, it's really all about democracy. And I think that is foundationally problematic as you move to populism. I have a plan. I won't. I can share it for all those. I think that we should drop democracy and come up with a plan where we just have a random selection of 1,000 people that become the leaders, pay them a couple $100,000 a year. They take a test that gets pulled out of a lottery. Those people make serve 6-year terms, no other term, and that's it. And I think you'd cut down on a lot of the the lobbying. I think you'd represent the people better, and I think it would be a far better system. But no one's asked me yet.
Well, all right. I think this is a new facet, Jay, that I am just discovering in terms of your innovative thought. So we're going to have to give that more thought. Those of you who are interested in what Jay was just talking about, that panel on authoritarianism, that was with Richard Salzman of Duke, as well as Stephen Hicks and David Kelly on our team. So Atlas Society Gremlins, if you could please serve that link up also into the discussion, that would be great. Otherwise, guys, you can find it on our Facebook, our YouTube, and of course, sign up for the newsletter, because I think Sue had also asked, how do we figure out about these events other than the gala? Well, first, what do you mean other than the gala? You need to come to the gala next year, because it's going to be even more spectacular than this year's gala. But head to the events section of our site and just hit us up at the Atlas Society. Let us know where you're at, where you'd like us to come and travel to. And then in the meantime, we are going to be doing these every single week. Lockdowns, no lockdowns. This has been a wonderful, happy surprise at the Atlas Society. Thank you. Authoritarianism link is in there. And I'm grateful, Jay. I'm very grateful.
I'm deeply grateful, and close with the best we can do to promote these ideas is simply to be a great example of rational, benevolent, decent people, and happy is a big part of it. So grateful.
And I wouldn't close without also, I don't know if you're going to be this happy about this, Jay, but one of the things that Jay announced at the gala, okay, not just double, it's not just a match, which we already had, folks. We have a double match between now and the end of the year.
That's a board match.
Board match, I know, but it was your idea. I thought it was an excellent idea.
Yep.
So what do you say, guys? Shall we have our board pay up? $5 to the Atlas Society, gets 15 bucks.
That's on any new or increased gift from here to year end, right? From gala to year end. So
okay.
All right.
So let's do it. All right. Well, thanks, Jay. Say hi to everybody, and talk to you on Friday.
It was great fun. Thank you.
Bye.